It's no secret that both our federal and BC governments are hostile towards the oil and gas industry. But what I can never comprehend is why John Horgan, Andrew Weaver, the NDP and Greens oppose the low-carbon, clean and renewable energy from the Site C hydroelectric dam, currently under construction near Fort St. John, BC. So I tried asking the Federal Minister of Climate Change, McKenna, how her government feels hydroelectricity projects across the country fit in the overall fight against climate change.
What does the federal government believe the role of hydroelectricity is, whether it's Site C or other hydro projects across the country, in providing clean power, especially as we see cities like Vancouver phase out fossil fuels for increased electrification?
So you're the rebel media that happens to call me Climate Barbie. I certainly hope that you will no longer use that hashtag.
Despite McKenna's attempts to make this about nicknames or tone policing, I felt I had a legitimate question given the government's push to reduce emissions, and since environmentalists have been complaining loudly that the impacts outweigh the benefits in regards to Site C. During the last BC election, John Horgan promised that should he become Premier, he would send the Site C project off for review with the BC Utilities Commission. And when he was made Premier, that's precisely what happened. Now, this past week, the BC Utilities Commission released its much-awaited 300-page report, and the findings are not good for the future of this project. But that has not convinced some scientists who support the project that the BCUC report was presented without bias and with the correct factual analysis. But let's begin with the report findings. The Commission studied 3 potential outcomes for the project. The first looked into whether the project was on time and on budget to be completed by 2024. And then the Commission also studied 2 alternate possibilities. What would it cost to delay and then resume the project sometime between now and 2024? And what it would cost to scrap this project altogether. According to the Commission, the project is indeed behind schedule and about $2 billion over budget. That means the $8.3 billion project is now slated to come in at over $10 billion. Delaying the project is the worst option, according to the Commission. Any delay would add at least an additional $3.6 billion to the project. That leaves canceling it altogether, which would add another $1.8 billion. And what's more, of course, it would mean the loss of 2,200 jobs in a region of the province that is severely beleaguered for employment opportunities. Now, the Commission and the report suggest that there are viable alternatives to meet the energy and electricity demands of the province going forward, but we're not so sure. First, the report painstakingly details the province's electric load forecast. However, the report's forecast does not take into account the fact that all 3 levels of government are pushing for increased electrification as part of its vow to fight climate change. Both the feds and the province are pushing subsidies for electric vehicles and electric furnaces. But amazingly, the report states, quote, "The panel finds additional load requirements from potential electrification initiatives should not be included in BC Hydro's load forecast for the purpose of resource planning," unquote. That appears to ignore some of the most prevalent initiatives to mitigate emissions through increased electrification. Consider the city of Vancouver, for instance, who want to ban natural gas and move to zero emissions. Does the Commission's stipulation on BC Hydro concerning additional electrification load forecasts make any sense to you? Because it doesn't make any sense to us. There are other questions about the Commission's report as well. For instance, Rob Skagel of Pacific Phytometric Consultants shared with us what he wrote to Premier Horgan about the report's seeming to lack source citation. Quote, "I was especially irritated at the failure of the BC Utilities Commission to provide explicit identification of those making the significant quotations cited throughout the full report. To my eye, this looks like the same small number of very vocal malcontents and naysayers that have dominated and dogged the review process." He continued, "Their environmental concerns detailed in the full report reflect the continued meddlesome intrusion of foreign-funded environmentalists into domestic Canadian affairs," unquote. So it appears that this report not only ignores major impacts of climate change policy being implemented at all 3 levels of government, but of course, according to Skagel, relies heavily on input from foreign-funded activists. So, now you know why I asked McKenna what I did last Friday. But here, take a look at that now infamous exchange.
Can I get a commitment from you that you will not use that hashtag and not use that name in your articles?
Well, me personally, yes, but I don't
Just
have
for
editorial
Rebel
control
Media,
over others.
please?
But if you want to get into it right now, you actually banned one of our correspondents from going to the upcoming conference in Bonn. So how
That
come
is
you did
not
that?
true. In fact, I wrote a letter last year encouraging you to come because I think that you can all learn about climate change, how it's
Absolutely.
real
and
and it's having real
I have
impacts.
a legitimate question about hydroelectricity's role.
I just would like a commitment that you will not call me names, that you won't talk about the color of my hair, that you won't make fun of me, and the reason I'm asking you not to do this is because I have 2 daughters,
All right.
that there are lots of girls that want to get into politics, and it is completely unacceptable that you do this.
Well,
That you
what
can
I
be
find
a
unacceptable
legitimate
is when you smear
organization.
people calling them deniers with all the connotations of the Holocaust denial, okay? There is a debate on this science. Now, if you would kindly please answer my question about hydroelectricity, this is very important. There are 2,200 jobs on the line up in the northern part of BC as the BCUC Commission just completed their report.
So I'm very pleased that you've agreed that you will no longer use names that are derogatory to women. Thank you very much. In terms of your question, yes, we all know we need to move to a cleaner future. We agree that we need to look at all forms of energy that is cleaner, that we understand that we need to be working with communities to find solutions that make sense, that hydro is one of the solutions, but we all need to be working together.
Now, if climate change truly is the greatest, or at least one of the greatest threats of our time, shouldn't our legitimate question about the role of hydroelectricity in fighting that threat have been taken seriously? Well, we think so, and so do residents of British Columbia, whose lives are directly impacted by the fate of the Site C Dam. For the Rebel.media, I'm Christopher Wilson. Thanks for watching. Never miss a video. Click subscribe on Rebel Canada's YouTube page.